Hi, welcome to One Eye on the Page. I'm Scott. It is another vlog week. I have completed 3 books this week, and as soon as I start the video, the cats come in. So let's get into it. The first book I finished this week, which was not a book that I planned to read. The end of last month, I talked about how I was going to do a readathon, a Tolkien readathon based on a map that my daughter Robin, Hobbit's reading list, put together. And I picked 13 books for it, which I am reading the 13 books, not all at once, although sometimes I might do something like that. But I also picked up this other book just because it interests me. Uh, it is, it's Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. I believe I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Julia Whelan is a audiobook narrator. She is also an actress, or has been an actress. I don't know if she's still currently acting. She was on Once and Again, a show that ran on ABC for 3 seasons. It was by the makers of 30 something. It was a very good show that I watched at the time. She played the daughter of the Celia Ward character, I believe, Grace Manning. She was very good in it. I have not actually listened to any of her books that she has done, although probably I think the most well known one is Gone Girl that she did the narration for. But uh, I saw somebody else talking about this book and it looked interesting, so I picked it up. It is about an audiobook narrator who was an actress. She lost an eye in an accident, so she's not acting anymore. She has been doing audio narration. These cats are going to kill me. Um, and she's got a grandmother who has Alzheimer's. She has a best friend who's an actress who's up on the rise, and she meets a man in Las Vegas one night. She's there for like a audiobook convention. She meets the man and they have a little fling, and then she starts to do narration on a book for a author of a romance book. The author has passed away and has asked her to do this, even though she has moved on from doing romance books. And it's just basically complications of expectations versus reality. I have to say this is probably going to be the only romance book I read this month, if only because I have been in the habit of reading a romance book, loving it, and then every other romance book I read that month is either mediocre or far worse. This book was very, very good. I really liked it. Uh, it had some of the romance tropes, but I think it handled it well. I liked almost all of the characters. The only negative I have to say is that the main character, her name is Swan, her father was just irritating beyond belief, and I just wanted to not be reading the book the few times that he was in it. I don't think that he deserved anything good. You get near that, move away, dude. Cats. And if I close the door, they'll start going under the door. Uh, but I really dislike the father character, and think I think he got a lot more than he deserved by the end of the novel, and that's my only one complaint about it. Uh, the dialogue between the main couple and even their texts and messages, they read as real. Often in books, when people are messaging themselves, it's all cringe to me. But I really like this. We obviously know that they have sex, but there's no description of sex really in the books. But If that's your thing, this probably isn't going to be the book for you. But it's just overall very good storytelling with a little bit more depth than just the romance, and the characters who feel real. The male character isn't a huge jackass or a paragon of virtue. He's a guy who has good qualities and bad qualities, and she has her own issues to work with, and they just seem like real people. I'm going to give this one 4.5 stars, which pretty much guarantees I'm not reading another romance, or at least not a modern romance, because I really can't say that I'm not going to read another romance because I did, in a sense. Although it's a romance, but I don't look at it as a romance. But it is in the collection of Jane Austen. It is Emma. Emma is about a young woman. She's 20 at the start of the novel. I believe she turns 21 during the novel. She basically kind of runs her house. Her father, quite honestly, needs a lot of handling. Um, and almost everybody loves her, and she perhaps has let that get to her head. She believes she has a matchmaking ability that she perhaps doesn't have. There is a Mr. Knightley who is pretty much the only person who, well, at least by the beginning of the novel, because there are many irritating people in this novel who love to talk and do it in that Jane Austen way. Where it's like, oh wait, they're being catty, and I just didn't know because of the language that they use. But Mr. Knightley is the only one who ever calls her on and stuff. It's pretty much a Jane Austen book. If you've read one, you'll be familiar with it. I will say, when I read older books, I face the possibility that I'm going to know something about them, even if I haven't read them before. I've never read Emma before. I have tried to read it once before, and for whatever reason, I didn't progress very far at all. Not even enough to go like, oh, this isn't for me. It's just I read to a certain point, and then I don't know, I saw something shiny. But I do know something about Emma. One, we know, or I know at least, maybe everybody does, and I was the last one to catch up on it. But Clueless is based on Emma, and you can kind of see that if you watch the movie and read the book, and you kind of know what's going on in the book. There's class issues, and there's the men women relationships in the early 19th century. I also know that a lot of people don't necessarily view this favorably, at least as far as a Jane Austen book. A lot of people don't like the character of Emma, and I knew that. And a lot of people, I won't say a lot of people, but I've seen a vocal group who have praised Mr. Knightley even beyond Mr. Darcy, who I see just based on the way people talk about him as that's the ultimate Jane Austen male character. I will say two things. I don't think Emma is as bad as people say she is. One, I think she's young, and young people make mistakes. Two, I don't. Some of the things that people charge her with are like, I don't necessarily buy. Yes, she's manipulative a little bit, especially with her friend Harriet, and not to Harriet's benefit. And she does manipulate her father, but the man needs it. The man needs to be guided. But I just think she's young. She's learning. She is a self-reflective person. She will. I kind of look at her as she's the type of person who will not make the same mistake twice. She may make a lot of mistakes, but I think she learns every time she does. So I don't view Emma as poorly as some people do. I also don't view Mr. Knightley as well as some people do. Now, I will say at the beginning of the novel, I really disliked Knightley. I will say it like Mrs. Elton was saying without giving him the Mr. But Mr. Knightley, whatever. At the beginning of the novel, I really disliked him. He seemed to be perfecting the skill of negging. It's like every time he talks to Emma, it's always to insult her or downgrade her or say, "Yes, you're beautiful, but this." And I do think by the end of the novel he was more likable, but I don't feel like I really truly liked him. For all the things that he says about Emma, the man talks about people behind their backs a lot. He's very judgmental about many characters. And, for all the talk that we see about Emma in class, his talk about Harriet, it's like people seem to view the two of them with different eyes. I think it's okay if he does something, but not okay if she does something. I will also say I had some issues with the gap between them. Now there is an age gap. She's 21 and he's 37. Now it wasn't unheard of in that time for older men to marry much younger women, sometimes teenagers. Not as often as one might think, but it did happen. I mean, it happens now. I I will say it didn't really bother me. That part didn't bother me. The part that did bother me is that he has known her, according to the novel, since at least when she was 10 years old. And so he was 26. So being in her life and knowing her like that and knowing her well enough to be able to know like what types of books she said she was going to read when she was 14, it's a little strange to me. He does at one point, and I know there are arguments about this, he does at one point say that he has loved her since the age of 13. Now I have seen some people say that he was joking. I do not see anything in the novel myself that indicates that this was a joke, but I don't have a problem with the age gap. I have it's kind of like if he came from another town, he was 37, he met this young girl at 21, and he fell in love with her. That would be a little bit different for me than a guy who knew her when he was 26 and she was 10. I have to say, a lot of the characters in here were annoying, but that didn't take away from the overall enjoyment of the book much. I'm going to give this one a 4 star. I just, you know, luckily for me, there are only so many Austen books. She didn't have a large output because I see the same things in every one. After a few novels, and I've read Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and this one now. I haven't read Persuasion or Northanger Abbey, and I don't think there's another one. I think there was another one that was unfinished, or I'm not sure. I don't know. But it was a good read, but I'm kind of glad to be away from it. And I could not live in that society at all. It would make me bang my head against the wall. But these two books are amazing compared to the third book I finished, which was Undertaking Irene by Pamela Burford, which was one of the Tolkien adventure books or Tolkien roadmap books that I read. It was I forget where it was for, but it was supposed to have a candle on the cover. And actually, the book I have doesn't have a candle on the cover, but Google search told me it did, so I blame Google search. It is a mystery about a woman who is a death diva. She basically does jobs for people around death, like the job that she is in at the beginning of the novel is to take a brooch from a woman who at her wake. Um, and the person who hired her to do it, I won't say hired because she's worked for this woman basically for 20 years. Uh, and sometimes she does like legally iffy stuff like this. And other times she just does stuff that's perfectly legal, but you know, people may not be comfortable doing. But the woman who has her do this, she dies under mysterious circumstances. And basically, it's about finding out who does this. Now, there are a lot of problems with this book. The first book, the first thing is it's written in first person and it's written in an irritating first person. Like she's not writing this, she's talking to you doing this and doing little asides, and it doesn't work. It does not work at all. The second problem, well, the second problem that I really have with this is that the main male character is one dimensional, is an asshole. I know we're supposed to like him at some point in the book, but I don't. I keep waiting for him to get run over by a semi or something. Author seems to believe that we should be siding with this guy, but this guy uh, breaks into multiple places, gets information to basically blackmail people. I don't know. He's got that kind of thing, like the meme where a guy is talking to a woman in a club, and he's just like really up here, and he's talking and she's just kind of like this. It gives that kind of vibe. Uh, really disliked him. Also, the main character, again, this is a mystery. The main character is an idiot, a moron of Captain Hastings proportions. She's, I expected her to die by the end of the novel because, like, what's the wrong thing to do in this circumstance? I'll do that. And that's basically the entire novel. It's not a good novel. I am not going to read any more Jane Delaney mysteries because I don't see why she would be involved with mysteries at all because she's not a detective. She has no skills. I don't know how she is able to do her death diva stuff, which would require a little bit of being able to have a poker face, which she doesn't, a little bit of street smarts, she doesn't have those, not following some guy around like a puppy dog, she does that. So this one, I think I'm being a little bit generous here, but this one's 2 stars. It wasn't good, and I'm unhappy that I read it. But I am happy that I marked off one book for my Tolkien readathon. So those are the books that I finished this week. I have read several other books, although not completed them. Uh, I didn't bring it out here, but I'm still reading Eleanor Oliphant is Perfectly Fine. I forget the author, but I will show the picture somewhere here. I've only read a little bit further in there. It's good book at least so far, but the main character, it's written in first person again. It's just one of those characters. I can only take a little bit at a time. I it's kind of like, and I don't say this in a bad way, but it's like cringe. It's like watching The Office. Like The Office, most of it is a good show, but a lot of it is cringe. So I end up watching like this, and I'm kind of like that with this book. So it's moving slowly. Uh, I have started Unfinished Business by Agatha Christie. It's another Mary Westmacott book she wrote as Mary Westmacott. I just started it. Luckily for me, it is shorter than the last Mary Westmacott novel because this is published in the years like 1931 to 1935, which would be the third 5 year period of what I'm doing for 5 year battle Agatha Christie. So I need to read this soon for that. It does look like that it will be more enjoyable than the last book, though. I am also reading Carry On Jeeves by P.G. Woodhouse. This is the next book that Robin and I are doing for the P.G. Woodhouse podcast that we do. This book is 10 short stories. I'm 5 short stories into it. I should finish it this week. I have read it before. I liked it. Uh, with every Jeeves and Wooster book, I'm going to be irritated by Bertie's friends, but I still like Bertie. I still like Jeeves for the most part. And it's always an enjoyable read, especially for the Woodhouse humor. Some of the best Woodhouse humor is in the Jeeves and Wooster books, so that is good. I am reading Holly by Stephen King. I am I'm just like 17 pages into it. Now that I have finished some other books, I'm really gonna get moving forward in it. I don't know if I'll finish it this week, but I will finish it within the next couple of weeks. I have no opinions on it yet. It just started, read the first chapter. First chapter was very good. It looks like it's gonna be a little darker than most recent Stephen King, and I'm intrigued by the villains. And that's not a spoiler because it's on the flaps there about them. So, and I've also started Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I doing that one on audiobook. Like 30-40 minutes into it. It's like 7 hours long. I should be able to finish it this week. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this because this is another one of those ones where I think I kind of pretty much know the whole story, even though I've never read the book before. So we will see where that goes. That is it for this week. Please like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time.